Alright, so we're going to do some service work on this X738 today. According to the owner's manual, every 400 hours or 24 months you're supposed to change the engine coolant. So we're going to do that today. And I just bought the John Deere premix stuff because that's way quicker. So, and I know it's laid out in the owner's manual how to do it. The fuel filter has like a specific amount of hours or time, and the time I believe is 1 year. I changed the oil over to 5W30 for winter when I put the snowblower on, which I'm getting ready for. The deck, there's some maintenance with that. The gear oil on the gearbox should get changed, or yeah, should get replaced this year, I guess. So I don't know what we'll all do today, but we'll for sure get the coolant and oil and that stuff changed over. I also got air filter for it as well, so we'll get that changed and go from there. Alright, so for some reason we have a early winter going on this year. Temperatures have been extremely cold. I don't know if that's for everybody or just us here in Wisconsin, but I think our average temperature should be somewhere between 45, 47, and we were in the teens the other day, and I think some spots were actually either 0 or below 0 for early November, late October. That's pretty cold. So yeah, we had some snow already too, measurable snow. So I'm gonna get the oil going here, and then we'll talk about a little bit of the other stuff that we're doing here. In the way of hours, I know I've talked in the past, we were doing oil analysis at work, and our interval was set for large stuff, 6 months, 10,000 miles, and basically no hours. So we were measuring how many hours we'd get in a 6-month span because we weren't hitting the 10,000 miles. And some of the stuff I think had between 700 and 800 hours. And we found that it was beyond what the oil was capable of, and that was a 1540, I think semi-synthetic or conventional. I don't even know what the oil is that we're running, but the hours were too long, so I think they bumped the hours down to 350 hours, 6 months, or 10,000 miles. So we'll have to see what the oil analysis shows once we get those samples back, and we'll have to go from there. So it's just kind of interesting to see, like, engine hours makes a big deal if you're doing a lot of idling. Alright, so I just got the oil and the fuel filter changed here. So, and I think I've shown this before, but I like to put down the hours on the filter just so you have an idea. I did the same over here with the fuel filter. Now we're going to work on getting the coolant dropped here so we can get that changed. According to the book, it takes 4.2 quarts, which would be what, a gallon and a little bit. So when I went to the dealership, the girl was trying to sell me 2.5 gallons of coolant, and I was like, it only takes 4.2, because of course the parts people couldn't find out the actual specifications of what the machine held. So if you want the filters and that type of thing, go to the dealership knowing what numbers you need and knowing how much you need of the product, whether it's coolant or oil. They don't know. She went to the service department and that guy was gone, so like she had no idea. I said, you know what, I'm just taking a gallon of coolant. I got another partial jug of coolant, that should be enough. I'm not buying 2.5 gallons of coolant. So, and I popped the hood off here just so you can kind of see everything. And it's a good idea to take a look at the battery too. This battery actually doesn't look too bad. I don't see anything cooking out the top. If there was, you'd see like some stuff on top of the battery if it gets warm, acid or whatever, corrosion. This looks okay, so which is actually pretty surprising, because we think with all the heat this thing creates cutting, be cooking out some of that acid, but it looks like it's all right. So yeah, we'll just leave that alone. We'll put the cover back on that or whatever, and if we need to replace it we can, but taking the hood off is pretty easy. You just got this one, I don't know if they call this a Deutsch connector. It's some sort of watertight connector though. Pull this off, and then there's just like hooks that kind of slide in here, so you just get the right angle and then you can just pull the hood off on both sides. Same type of connector on each side there. So like I said, we'll get to the coolant. Hopefully nobody loses their mind that I put Valvoline in this thing. The oil really doesn't matter as long as you got the right specification of in the right type. So this here, I'm just, like I said, it's just a conventional 530. All right, so to start by draining the coolant, we're gonna open up the radiator cap here. And I have been running it, so it's a little warm. So it says right on it, danger, never open when hot. So don't open it when it's hot. There's pressure on this. And there's a little bit of pressure in there yet. You like this? I like this. They actually have it recessed so that the cap will turn because the dash is so close. You think that was an afterthought? I'm willing to bet it was. It makes it almost impossible to get the thing open here. There it is. So, and I'm gonna try to use a clear container to see if there's any sediment or anything as we get the first bit of coolant coming out. So the radiator is right in here. There's actually a drain for the radiator. We'll get to that in a second. And then there's also a, I don't know, this says for the engine, but this bolt here should drop some of the coolant we got probably in this line. This is from the bottom radiator hose. So I'm assuming anything that's up in the engine water pump should come out of this that drain bolt right there. So let's go underneath and get the radiator going. All right, so this is gonna be almost impossible to film. You can see there where this hose comes down here, that's gonna drain your radiator. So that's nice because we can get a container right here into that. But then if we go back up in there, right there, that white wing nut, it's gonna be to drain the radiator. So I'll loosen that up and we'll see what comes out here. All right, let's see if we can get this. There is a wire harness or something right next to this, so it kind of makes it difficult to turn. All right, it actually wasn't too tight. Usually with these, it seems like they get kind of frozen to position. You gotta take a pliers to break them free. Okay, so I'm turning, there we go. Actually, the first little bit there looks pretty good. This container I'm putting in wasn't exactly clean, but it was pretty clean. So the coolant that John Deere uses is kind of a yellow color. See, that doesn't look too bad. But I don't know, I just find that with coolant, if it doesn't get changed, you end up with water pump failures or gasket failures. It just seems like that's a pretty common thing. And we don't seem to do enough of that at work. We do a lot of oil hydraulic changing and filter changing, but not so much with the coolant. We usually wait with that until we have some sort of failure. It's a component. All right, so we'll let that drain and then we'll get to the other side and open that up. All right, so I got it draining in a different container just so we can kind of look at it. There is some stuff floating in there that wasn't in this container, and I know it's maybe kind of hard to see, but you can see there's some black specks. So there was a little bit of breakdown or whatever. Or, I don't know, it's an aluminum block, so you want to change it so you don't end up with some sort of corrosion issues. I've lost patience, so I'm going to let that continue draining and we're going to tackle dropping that. The one thing I did note for John Deere, the drain refill flush process is the radiator, and this here does not include the overflow tank. If you turn the page in the manual, then it talks about pulling these two screws, the hose up on top, and I think you got to pull this bolt for this bracket that kind of holds that neck in there. Obviously I'm going to just drain that too right away. I'll just take it out, drop it. We'll see if there's any deposits maybe in the bottom here. It looks pretty clean. I know we end up with a lot of stuff coming out the top when I'm cutting lawn on a hill like that, but we're going to do that as well. Maybe that wasn't included in that 4.2, but this doesn't hold that much. And I probably have 1.5 gallons, so I'm thinking I'm probably pretty good. So let me dump this pan down here and then we'll get to dropping the next part. Alright, so this looks like it's going to make a mess. There is no hose or anything, so it's going to kind of run down, pick up some dirt and debris as we go. And I'm using a 12 millimeter here to get this off. Oh, I have it the right way. Holy smolies. It was snug. It's probably just an aluminum crush washer. And I don't know how much is going to come out of here, if this is going to spray out of here and make a huge ginormous mess. It looks like it's going to hit this and then go all over the frame and give everything a good coating of antifreeze here. Well, there's not much. It's probably a cup or 2 cups. Yeah, that's good. If you could go all over the floor, that would be great. So we'll kind of just let that do its thing. Yeah, hoses feel like they're empty. Like I said, it's probably just this top pipe. I don't think there's anywhere else that we can drain the coolant like out of the block. So there's got to be still some in the block, I'm assuming at the bottom here, maybe not. Yeah, it looks like there's a small Allen. It'd be hard to get to that we could probably maybe take that out, but we'll call that good. I mean, that's quite a bit of fluid we took out, so that should do a good job exchanging. And it's just the breakdown of that coolant over time. It just ends up corroding. You know, we got some aluminum engines at work that we deal with, or components that are aluminum, and that coolant, if you don't change it, it just corrodes, and the aluminum just makes a mess. So and if you want it to last a long time without any type of issues, I would do it. I mean, it doesn't cost you that much, and I think it's, what did I say, every 2 years they say you should do it. You could probably let it go longer. We only got 357 hours, but time can be a factor, and this is the first time it's been done, so now that I've done it, I can probably let it go a little bit longer. Alright, so we got it all drained out. I got this bolt put back in. That just goes into aluminum, so don't get carried away with that. The bolt right there. And then the overflow tank, like I said, there's 2 bolts here. There's a hose with like a spring clip. This that holds the neck of it, that just swiveled for me, so this is probably maybe loose, but swiveled out of the way. And then there's this is like the overflow hose, which allows coolant to go onto the ground if the tank is full. That actually goes through the back of your fuel filter here. So you'd have to pull the fuel filter off to leave the hose on, otherwise there's just one of these annoying spring clips. So you can just kind of pinch that together and slide it down and work that off. So, and then I took the overflow inside and kind of cleaned it up a little bit and then dried it out. So I'll put that back on and we'll start filling this thing up. Alright, so let's get this overflow tank put on here. Let's see, let's get this up. Let's do that now while we have access to that. It's not like there's any pressure in this hose. This clamp is just basically holding the hose on there. That looks about right. Get this one on the top. Spring clip. To take those these screws in, basically this just goes into plastic. I use a 10 millimeter on that. I don't know, I think most of the stuff on the John Deere here is metric because it is the Kawasaki engine. Don't go over tight with those. We'll get this spring clip here. Again, this one really doesn't have pressure on it. It's just an overflow from the radiator into the tank. And then this here, which, I don't know, we're not gonna worry about that. I think that can stay loose like that. And then I got the cap here. So like I said, I cleaned that up just so that it's a little bit clearer to see. Now we'll work on filling it up. I believe we just fill it through the radiator, and that's about it, I guess. I'll have to look to see if there's any purging for it. Alright, so I actually looked through. There is also a procedure and a special John Deere flushing cleaner that you can run in here. Obviously we're not going to do that because there's not enough hours, but we will do the coolant drain and fill on it. I don't know if I should have a funnel or not. I'm almost thinking I should. I don't know, should we try it? This stuff is gold, so I'm sure it's worth its weight in gold. Yeah, we should probably get a funnel. This is going to make a mess. So it didn't say anything in the book about purging out air or anything like that. It did say when you're filling the radiator, it should be level with the neck. Alright, so you can see I got it right to the top of the neck there. That was exactly 1 gallon that I dumped in. And got to fill up the overflow tank here. I'm not sure where I'll put that. If I'll just go to minimum, maybe just to get it going and then start it, let it run, get warm, and then kind of adjust as we go probably is what I'll do. Don't want to put too much in because then it's just going to end up on the ground. Alright, so that overflow tank does not take much. I was only going to put a little bit in there, and then before I knew it I was already above the minimum. So it doesn't hold much, and like I said, I think I had about a half a gallon left from last time from doing a project with the tractor or whatever, but I bought 1 gallon. So 2 gallons is more than enough. A gallon will get you really close, and I don't know if they sell it in a quart increment, but and like I said, I've changed the oil and changed the fuel filter and all this. I haven't run it or anything, so I'm gonna start it up, let it run, get warm up to operating temperature, and then we'll kind of go from there and see where we need to adjust. Alright, so I just ran this thing outside for, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. I also got to check the level on the oil because it's not a straight 2 quarts, it's like a 1.9, so I always don't want to put too much in. It's going to be pretty close. Today's going to be a twofer. Besides the coolant, we're also going to do the paper filter. So you can get both from John Deere. You can get the paper filter and what they call the pre-filter, which is this foam element. Now, the thing to not get yourself confused with is if you've worked with foam filters in the past, pre-filters, usually you oil them. This one is not to be oiled, and it specifies that right in the owner's manual. Do not oil the pre-filter. It says what you're supposed to do is just use a mild dish detergent and clean it, make sure it's dry, and then put it on. So I went and bought the paper filter because I think it says you're supposed to change it every year. I've never changed the paper filter, and to be honest, I may keep this paper filter because it doesn't look that bad to me. And I don't even recall what it costs, but this is the paper filter. The biggest thing is, boy, there's a lot of pleats there. When you look at a filter, you can take a flashlight and kind of shine it through from the back side here to see if you see any like pinholes through the filter. That's what you want to be watching out for, or you can kind of see how much dirt's actually caught in those pleats, but you're looking for pinholes. Pinholes would be a definite toss to filter. So here's the new filter that comes from John Deere in this genuine Kawasaki parts box. So that's nice. So you know that John Deere is just basically buying the filter from Kawasaki, putting a markup on it, and then giving to you, and they do a nice job of going over what the actual part number is. So I'll have to find out, because underneath there is a Kawasaki sticker. We could probably get the number and get the filter through Kawasaki much more cheaper than getting it through John Deere and them putting their markup. And like I said, I'm going to keep that old filter just in case. We'll kind of look at it and compare here. Maybe I should just toss it. I mean, I guess you could keep it if for some reason it got really dusty, but why are we keeping used filters? What's the point of that? So here's the new and the old. So you can tell the new one on the right is definitely a little bit more pinker than the one that's on the left here. That one looks a little darker, so it's catching some dust. Oops. So I don't know. We'll keep the old filter for a while until I say I don't need that, and I send it on its way. But right now, it's not going to cost us anything to keep that. The old filter in this Kawasaki box, and maybe somebody else knows out what the Kawasaki part number is. And then for that pre-filter, I'm going to just probably take the compressed air here from the shop air, blow out some of this dust, and then I'll take it in the house or in the garage, just use some water and wash it out, and then make sure that this is dry, because if it's not, you're going to end up with water in that filter or even some rust. Do not oil it. It says specifically in the directions, do not oil this. This is a pre-filter that is not to be oiled. Even though we have filters at work that look just like this on the same type of setup, I even think on the same type of engine that calls for oil, but in this case it doesn't. Maybe it's got something to do with the fact that it's fuel injected. I don't know. Alright, so I checked everything over here. Had to add a little oil. Everything looks pretty good. I'll show you what I did with the filter. So on the top here I just wrote date and the hours on it, and then I cleaned that pre-filter just with some I don't know, some sort of generic soap, and then I used my wife's hair dryer to kind of dry it out just to speed the process up. I did notice on the front here, and I knew at some point the hydraulic transmission and filter needs to be changed, but if we look at that, so change transaxle oil and filter. First dot means required service at interval, which is 50, but then if you look over one more time, it says hours at 200. So the last time I did it, it was 116 hours, and now I'm at 357, so I'm actually over the 200 hour interval. But I didn't buy the oil or filter because I thought it was 400. I thought I could go a little longer, so I'll be doing that in the spring again, because over the winter here you're not going to get much dust, and depending on, knock on wood, how much snow we get, may not have to use this at all, but it sounds like we could have a pretty strong winter. And then the other thing it said was to check and or adjust valve lash at 200 hours. And in the book, well, obviously you're going to pull this cover off on each side and check that, but in the book it doesn't give you any specifications what the lash should be. It just says that you need to go to the dealer or whatever. So I guess I'm gonna have to give them a ring and see if they have the what the specification's supposed to be, and if they're willing to give it to me. They might not be willing to give it to me. They may say, oh, that's a dealer thing, dealer has to do that, which fine if the dealer has to do it, if it voids some sort of warranty thing or something, but it shouldn't take very long, because you're basically just popping off these 4 bolts, this cover comes off, and that's it. There's really not much to it, so figure an hour's worth of time, who knows, it's probably like $100 some bucks, I'm sure, shop time. But yeah, it says every 200 hours on the gas engine it's supposed to be checked, and then if you had the diesel engine, it's every 1,000 hours you're checking the valve lash. So I don't know, that's what it is, I guess. So other than that, I think we're gonna call it good. I'm gonna throw the snowblower on after I wash this thing up. I went through and greased all the movement parts, pivot parts that have grease zerks, drive shaft, that type of thing. But other than that, we're gonna call this good and move on to the next project.